take me through your experience. Tell me about yourself. Just like walk me through your resume is another version of tell me about yourself, right? Why do they ask this when the resume is right in front of them? There's a couple of reasons. And there's a couple of reasons you're going to encounter. Number one is that they are lazy, okay? They are lazy. And what's most likely happened is that they have been doing job interviews that day back to back, okay? Usually when people schedule job interviews, it's relatively common to schedule, them on the same day, preferably back to back. So, you're already in the room, you already have the room, you're already in job interview mode, you've already got all the people you need, if it's like a panel interview or something like that, right? And so before you walked into the room, they did not have the opportunity to revise your job application or your resume or anything, right? And just so if everyone is wondering, if ever you find yourself in your career needing to do a job interview with somebody, right? You're the person conducting it. The idiot's guide to how to do a job interview is you put the person's resume on the table and you just start asking them about stuff on it, right? And if you're totally unfamiliar with who this person is because you didn't do any preparation or immediately before and you can't remember, the great opening question is some form of tell me about yourself, right? And that's supposed to be the icebreaker. It sort of kicks everything off. And you get the unimaginable joy of explaining to these people the absolute basics of who you are because they don't know, even though they invited you here, right? It's beautiful, right? The thing to do is to not get offended by this question, even though you might find it very rude and very strange that they don't know the most basic facts about you when you show up for the interview that they invited you to. It's very simple. Okay, now think about this. When you go to a job interview, are you there for the purpose of talking at great length about work you did for somebody else years and years ago? Is that what's relevant to these people? No, that's not what they want to hear at all. Who cares what you did with somebody else years ago, right? It might have absolutely no bearing on this job. You're here at the interview instead to explain to them why you're the perfect candidate for this job. What you're trying to communicate is, I'm the best candidate, and what you should do is you should forget all the other candidates you're interviewing. You should just reject them outright and hire me. And here's why, right? Here's what I can do for you. Here's how I have all the things that you're looking for. And here's how wonderful I am to interact with and to deal with, and how happy you are going to feel every time you got to deal with me in the workplace. That's what you're there to do. So that being said, we want to get the hell off this question as soon as possible. You want to give them a very quick overview. Here's what I am. I've got this education. I got this experience. I have these skills, right? The way you answer this question is the way you answer, tell me about yourself. Hopefully everybody knows that. You say, well, as you can see from my resume, and then you go down your resume. You start with your education. You start with your job the furthest in the past. I started here, and then I did this, and you come up in reverse chronological order to the present. You end with your most recent job, and then you conclude your answer by saying, and that's what brings me here today, and why I'm excited to learn more about this position. Right? Something of that nature. Now, the first part is optional. You don't have to say, well, as you can see from my resume, that's more of a memory jog for you. And if you do say that, make sure it's not in a condescending way. Well, I'm offended. You should know this already. That's not how we say it. You just say, well, as you can see from my resume, I have a degree in this and this education. I started out 20 years ago doing this job. I was in this role. I was in that role for 5 years, this role for 2 years. And then my most recent job, where I'm actually currently working, is I'm in this role with this position, and here's what I do. And I do all these different things. I've had these accomplishments, and that's what brings me here today, and why I'm excited to learn more about this position. Right? It just frames the basics of the interview. This is who I am. Now we can go from here. Right? It's a good overview of me. You want to do this in about 45 seconds. You don't want to be talking about stuff you did with some other company all the details of it, like, this thing that happened 10 years ago and exactly what you did. Nobody cares. They don't care. They want to know what you can do for them. And in all likelihood, the minutia of what you did in this other job, that might not apply, right? Now, if they have specific questions of maybe how that applied, they'll get to them later, right? But you want to just give this quick intro, frame the discussion. It's also like a memory jog for them. They're like, oh yeah, as you're talking, they're thinking, yeah, okay, I remember this candidate now. Okay, yeah, okay, I know where I am. Right? But it doesn't take up the entire interview. Instead, if you've got about 5 minutes talk time during a job interview, you don't want to spend it on this. You want to spend that time speaking to what they said they're looking for and really painting them a picture of the fact that you've got that and you're awesome because of it. That's what you want to talk all about, right? Okay? So, don't get offended by this question. Maybe I'm being a bit too kind, but don't think, less of the interviewer because they ask you this question. It's just a sort of icebreaker. It just helps them remember all the details about you and get into this. And use it as a jumping off point for the really important things that they're going to ask you that come later, that come after this question. Okay, does that make sense? That's how you regard this.